Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Kelly Berkowitz. Yes, it is my real name, my given name, my true name. Who could make that up? And I am here as your host for the 5th episode of Lyrics That Do the Talking. I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about. I thought maybe a Bacharach song, but I need to reflect a little more. We lost Bert. Wrote so many lovely songs. He's up there in the music heavens. Gosh, he wrote so many songs. But the song that was really sort of, I guess, when I reflected, in the forefront of my mind and soul and heart, was not a Bacharach song. It was a Jimmy Webb song. We are going to dive into Wichita Lineman today, whenever you're watching. Today, tonight, twilight hour, for this episode of Lyrics That Do the Talking. And I was not introduced to this song until much later in life. I'd never heard it before, and it wasn't until I was watching an episode of Ozark that it came on during a flashback sequence. It was the where they're setting up the Darlene character, like how her backstory. All of a sudden I heard the intro and was immediately, before the lyric even came on, and then the lyric came on, I was like, what the hell is this masterpiece that I've never heard of? Not that I know all the masterpieces, but I know pretty much a lot of the important music, and I felt like a fool that this one had gotten by me for so many years. So I'm listening to this. Of course, I stopped the episode and I just immediately looked it up, listened, cried, had epiphanies. Wow. So yeah, so we're going to look into Wichita Lineman by Jimmy Webb, of course, first introduced to the world by the incomparable Glenn Campbell. And something I forgot to do last episode, I had set a precedent of speaking the lyric that resonated the most with me as a listener or a singer or an audience member. I forgot to do it with Straighten Up and Fly Right. What would be that lyric? I guess that would have been the buzzard tried to throw the monkey off his back. I think the first time probably I would have been like, oh, wow, this is a violent song. Anyway, because I forgot to, just wanted to correct that. So the line that gets me in this song is, and I think it's the line that's open to the most amount of interpretation, because, I mean, Jimmy Webb pretty much gives us what he was talking about in this song, but I have a few ideas of my own, and it's discussed as it's noted as the first existential country song. So the line that sticks out for me the most is, and I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time, and the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. I just want to discuss a little first thought I had about this song initially, and because I looked it up right away, so it was a very tiny thought, more of a footnote that shouldn't be noted, but sometimes like you have things and they're pretty funny. Like my dad had when I first put Natural Woman into shows, as I really didn't think I had any business singing it, because I don't know how much I can really bring new to it, but the crowd seemed to enjoy it. So my dad always thought that lyric was, the lyric is when my soul was in the lost and found, but my dad always thought it was when my shawl was in the Lost and Found, something about, I guess, the way Aretha hit that word. He literally thought it was when my shawl was in the Lost and Found. And I just thought that was adorable. And I still share that with audiences, you know, like when you're talking, when you're on stage, it's nice to. The real show, I know we're talking about lyrics, but sometimes I go off on a tangent because I'm a performer and like a front person. The real like juice and sort of magic of putting on a show is not really, yes, it's the tunes, and yes, it's your voice, and yes, it's your moves, but it's more sort of like your connection and your personality and the ability to make it a back and forth with the crowd. And whenever you can talk about little stories that mean something to you, that the genesis are with you, that the song brought about, the crowd always feels like, that's cool. Like, whoever it is up there just let me in on a little behind the scenes moment. They feel like they know you a little bit more, and they do, because you're letting them in on something. So that was always something that I let the crowd in on. It was what my dad thought. And what I thought initially when I first heard the song was the Wichita Lineman was a football player. So that was my original misunderstanding of the tune. Like I said, it didn't live in my mind for too long because I looked it up right away. So let's read the lyric. I've performed this tune, I think twice. Always nice when you get to do, I don't really believe that songs have genders, even if they have pronouns. If a song is a great song, like, and I don't even really think you have to switch the pronoun, right? Sometimes I don't, it's just a great song, you know? But anyway, I don't want to get into a whole political thing about pronouns, but sometimes when you're on stage, like a band leader, especially if they're male, will insist that you can't sing any male songs, and it's really stupid. You would think that we have progressed further than that in society, but I come up against that a lot, and I actually wrote a tune about it called Ryan's Gonna Kill the Leader of the Band. I wrote it for the voice of Johnny Mathis in my show, Mostly Dead People and Cher. Haha. Anyway, so we're back to Wichita Lineman. All right, so lyrics. I am a lineman for the county, and I drive the main road, searching in the sun for another overload. I hear you singing in the wire. I can hear you through the wine. And the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. I know I need a small vacation, but it don't look like rain. And if it snows, that stretch down south won't ever stand the strain. And I need you more than want you. And I want you for all time. And the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. It was a beautiful solo. And I need you more than want you. And I want you for all time. And the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. All right, let's jump into this tune. It's a very brief lyric, but it's really jam-packed. I may have to go into some musicalities. Musicality, making up words. Shakespeare did it, because it's actually written. Webb set it up in a certain way where he has things that he's meaning to actually be representative of the lineman's life, and then things, he goes into a different key when he wanted to be representative of the lineman's thoughts and feelings and maybe passions. Okay, so line by line, because I usually don't talk about the music. I mean, incidentally, but this show is about lyrics, right? Lyrics that do the talking. Right, because while I am very much a music person and a melody person, I write songs, I write music, I write lyrics, I write melodies, I write chord progressions. I am a lyric person first. Usually you're one or the other. You could be both, you could be a lot both, but the one usually sort of outranks the other, and for me it's definitely lyrics. Lyrics are definitely the harder thing to write when you're writing tunes. Not saying that melody writing is easy by any means, but really difficult to turn a new phrase. I mean, there are really no new phrases turning these days. It's more like in the rhythm. I mean, everything has been said. I think I've said this before. Paul Simon, I'm paraphrasing. Basically, everything has been said. It's just the way that you're going to say it to the world. How are you going to say it differently? That's your charge as lyricist. So I am a lineman for the county. So Webb wrote this tune in 1968, and he was in Oklahoma, actually, driving, and he said there was nothing on the road, I think, but like grass and telephone poles. And I think he liked Wichita being of, in Kansas, rather than a city in Oklahoma, but he was actually in Oklahoma. So why am I telling you this? So there were no private linemen. Okay, so any of you all that are not a Gen Zer, believe millennials, of course millennials know about like landlines, but there was a time and a day and a place when we had no cell phones or digital phones, and the only way that we could communicate with each other was a landline, a little pigtail on it, and it was, usually on the wall in your kitchen, and sometimes later on they gave you that thing where you could balance it on your on your neck, and you get a kink in your neck. And we had all kinds of phones. We have hamburger phones, we have whatever. We had the old princess phone, and people still talk about the princess phone to this day of being sort of like a staple in, oh look, it's an old princess phone, a staple in like movies of being able to peg maybe when something was written, released, the time period. It's really good production design. If you see, oh, in the background there's a princess phone. So we really don't have them nowadays. We have some digital madness that doesn't really work. Anyway, wow. So linemen were employed by the county. They were not private. They were actually employed by the county. So he's right on the nose. I'm a lineman for the county. So we're talking about first person. I, me. This is from the lineman's point of view. And this is Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy didn't stop on the road and actually talk to the lineman. No, he was just driving by, and he had all these thoughts about, wow, that guy is up really high. How long is he up there? He's got to be lonely. He's making it capable for all these people to talk to each other, and he's all by himself out here, I am a lineman for the county, and I drive the main road. Jimmy was also driving the main road that day when he got the impetus to write this song. So searching in the sun for another overload. So searching for a line that's burnt out, a line that needs repair, right? Because that's what he does. This guy is, or girl, I think at that time there were probably only men though on the lineman, but I guess now, I don't know if that's still that you have to be employed for the county, but I would imagine that anybody can fix the line, but then he was a lineman. So searching in the sun for another overload. So it's on his shoulders to fix this stuff so people can communicate with each other. So I imagine they send them out after a storm or before a storm to check that all the connections were, sturdy. And yeah, a lot is riding on this gentleman's shoulders for people to talk to each other, to communicate with each other. Okay, so I believe Jimmy wrote the parts of this tune that were from the actual life of the lineman in F. And then he goes into D, which would be the relative minor, but he doesn't go into D minor. He keeps it major, which I think is a major thing with this tune. When you listen to it, it's not a lot of tunes when you write, sometimes the release will go into the relative minor. It's a natural thing. It's like part of the human condition. It just resonates. It's a great thing to do. but he keeps it major, which is another reason why I think the song like pops so much. Is like, whoa, what's happening here? So he flows into D major for the part of the tune, Jimmy Webb, on purpose, for where the lineman, he's imagining that the lineman is thinking about something else other than his job. And that's when this whole idea of being the first existential country song comes into being. So Jimmy's saying, like, this ordinary person, I don't think anybody working up in the elements in, you know, nature and the weather is ordinary by any means. I think an extraordinary person has to hang out on the line and not get, you know, windburn and sunburn, and just has, like, you know, this kind of a personality that they could be, have such a lonely gig, you know. Yes, I mean, I guess there's a part of it that's very freeing and almost like you're flying, and but I would imagine that some of it is terrifying. Not that anybody that would choose this gig that was afraid of heights. Oh my God, imagine if you're afraid of heights and you're up on, you're like, oh, whew, wow. Okay, so he goes into D major, I believe, for the parts of the tune where this guy is departing from thinking about his work to thinking about romanticizing about something else, or just thinking about something else, but it happens to be a romantic topic. I hear you singing in the wire. And I would imagine that that's a pretty dead on thing, that there's a certain kind of hum from the wind, right? Off of the wire that maybe we don't hear because we're vroom, vroom, like zooming around in our car. We have our own like little hum of the car. Whereas if you're up there, there is probably some sort of vibration, right? And yeah, it probably would start somebody thinking about maybe something a little bit more romantic, or a little bit off of the job at hand, a little bit more sentimental, something else. Because you could tune out. I mean, if you do something for a living and you do it over and over and over and over again, I'm not saying that this lineman is slacking at his task by any means. I just think that he probably has the prowess at his job, the capability to go to another place. And that's what Jimmy was thinking about when he was driving down the road. He was like, whoa, this extraordinary person. Well, he called it an ordinary person with an ordinary job. I disagree. But the whole juxtaposition with this song being existential was that this ordinary person could have these extraordinary thoughts. So I hear you singing in the wire. Who is he talking about? Is he talking about a lover maybe that he has? Is he talking about somebody that he misses? Is he talking about someone who's actually on the line, someone that he's actually enabling to talk on the line because there was an overload on the line that he's helping? I can hear you through the whine. Does he hear? Is he imagining that he's hearing this person, this mythical person, this made up person? Or is it an actual person in his life that he loves? So I hear you singing in the wire. I can hear you through the whine. And then he goes back, and the Wichita Lineman, almost back to like Jimmy's point of view, or third person point of view of the Wichita Lineman thinking of himself. But I kind of like it Jimmy's point of view from the road watching him, and the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. So brief part of the song, but how long? I mean, it doesn't take that long to get through that part of the song. I'm a lineman for the county, and I drive the main road, searching in the sun for another overload. I hear you singing in the wire. I can hear you through the whine, and the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. It's not a very long time in the song, but I think Jimmy means it to be an enormous amount of time that this guy has had these thoughts of romance or love or maybe regret or epiphany or enlightenment or sentimentality. I think it's meant to represent an inordinate amount of time that this guy is up by himself on the wire and just perhaps getting lost in his own thoughts. You know, maybe he loves the gig. I mean, it is I mean, he's up there, you know, by himself. Maybe he feels like he's close to the heavens. Who knows? Okay, so back to now sort of the fundamentals of being a lineman, right? I know I need a small, so he's changed keys again. I know I need a small vacation, but it don't look like rain. All right, so that's very on the nose. Yeah, I would think if this guy is out in the elements 24/7, maybe, I'm not sure, I don't know. I would imagine it's a 40-hour work week, right? When you think about, if you work a 40-hour week for a living, just to send it out down the line, I would imagine that this gentleman has a 40-hour work week and he's probably exhausted and his hands are calloused and he's windburned and he's sunburned and maybe his back hurts or his knees hurt or any joint, any part of him that bends, right? Any part of him that could have tension in it. I would imagine that he's full of aches and pains. So I know I need a small vacation, but it don't look like rain. Like, I'm basically screwed. I have to be out. I have to be out here. And it's funny, it's ironic, because if there is a rain, he should be catching it on it before, maybe reinforcing it, whatever. But it don't look like rain that he used, but it don't rather than doesn't. Many lyricists do that. Sometimes it's better rhythmically to have a more succinct word, don't, rather than the two-syllable doesn't. I don't like any kind of hissy S's. And also, I think he means for it to sound like a common, like a blue collar person. But I wouldn't limit a blue collar person to speaking in a negative where it's supposed to be a positive, you know, like, but it doesn't look like right. I think he's more, Jimmy is maybe more thinking of blue collar and a little bit more conversational and colloquial rather than like a, you know, a posh, you know, white collar person. But I mean, there's times that I don't know what I would consider myself. I don't know what the heck kind of a gig I have. I think it depends upon the band. I could be a white collar person. I could be a blue collar person, depending upon the audience. I never really thought about that. It's an interesting premise for a song. Yeah, I just think it's a little bit more hip way of saying that it don't look like rain. I think it's more immediate, and I think it's more like, oh God, I have to be out here, right? And if it snows, that stretch down south won't ever stand the strain. So it's this beautiful image. You ever see snow on a telephone wire? And it's just like, it's weighing down, and usually snow is pretty heavy, right? So how much can the snow pile up on without it giving way or, you know, having a kink or being faulty or having a repair? So he can't take a small vacation, right? And even if he wanted to, right, it doesn't look like it's in the cards for him. So, and if it snows, that stretch down south won't ever stand the strain. So that was in that F key, right? So now he goes back to this D. It's not D minor, it's a D major key. And I need you more than want you. All right. I actually just got a brainwave for a tune that I think I'm going to write maybe as soon as I stop this video about needing and wanting. So I always thought in my life that I wanted to be needed. But I think I've come to the conclusion that I need, or would rather need, to be wanted. So you have a line like this, and I need you more than want you. And for me, that denotes somebody who is actually dependent on someone else, whether it's for, I don't know, their sanity or their emotional health or their, this is where I take it to, like, because a lot of this is spelled out by what Webb wanted it to be. But if you're singing a tune, you should internalize it and reinterpret it from your own life, from your own backstory, or create a backstory of it for yourself. And for me, the needing, but I need you more than want you, is, it's not as strong of a love as, but I want you more than need you, because that means, like, I'm cool. I really don't need anybody. I'm set in my life. I'm self-sufficient. But that being said, I want you here anyway. No, I don't need you. I don't rely on you. I could get along without you, but that doesn't matter, and I want you. And I just sort of came to that conclusion thinking about this song. And I think that's going to be my forever conclusion. So, and I need you more than want you, but now, and I want you for all time. So I think Jimmy's acknowledging that it is better to be wanted than to be needed. Because he is saying, I need you more than I want you. It's like, I need you like a drug, or I need you as food, or I need you as air, or I need you like water. Then he does follow it up by saying, and I want you for all time. And I think that's the stronger of the two poles. And I think he's giving the lineman the impetus or the feeling that whoever he's singing about, romanticizing about, he does want this person. And maybe he realizes that he wants the person when he's alone. Or maybe he had a moment where he slipped and maybe he thought he was going to fall off the line. Webb acknowledging the fact that the want is probably the less reliant emotion and the more of the emotion that someone would want to have felt about them rather than like a need, you know, because need always seems like a caregiver thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think I would rather need to be wanted. So I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. And then he flips it again. And it's funny too. There's an element of humor in it because he repeats, and the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. So he's having all of these grand, deep thoughts while he's at his very specific, what Jimmy Webb is categorizing as an ordinary task, this extraordinary thoughts accompanying this very ordinary task, which is a lovely sentiment and, you know, brilliantly illustrated in this lyric. And then we go back again to, and I need you more than want you. And I want you for all time. And the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. And there's a solo in between those two. And Glenn really rocks out on this beautiful guitar solo. And I think that when Jimmy initially sent it over to Glenn, I think he was daunted by the fact that he didn't hear from, I think it was recorded by the, was it recorded by the Wrecking Crew? I think. I'm not sure. I have to check. They were a West Coast based studio, I guess you could call them a band, studio musicians that kicked a tune up into the stratosphere with just their instincts as far as production elements went. They gave it a special sauce, and they were often called upon to elevate a session to the next level just because they'd just been doing it and they knew what would work and what wouldn't and what would be just that extra sparkle, that extra thing. I think it was the Wrecking Crew, but I'll put it in the text. So anyway, Jimmy was thinking that I think Glenn was rejecting the song because he thought that maybe it needed a bridge. And Glenn, when Jimmy finally got in touch with Glenn was like, no, we just finished it. And the solo sort of became like whatever bridge element that Jimmy thought, the writer, that he thought was missing. And it's just perfect. Doesn't need anything. Sometimes your songs can be bridgeless. There are many bridgeless songs out there. Sometimes you don't need a pre-chorus. Sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily follow a standard form. You have a song like, oh my gosh, Bill Withers. What's this one I should do? Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. Woo! You get into those I knows, right? And if you're working with people, funny, you call a tune like Ain't No Sunshine in my head because I play it for myself and I know when I'm gonna, or I have a track to it, and sometimes I sing with tracks, whatever. That's all right. So, but you know your I know pattern, and like sometimes you get off on an I know tangent. You got to make sure, oh God, I hope the band is with me. I know, you know. But that tune doesn't really have your standard form. And neither really does this tune. I think that's another thing that makes it so just exquisitely beautiful. So yes, Glenn loved the tune, and he said, no, I had recorded this amazing solo, and we're off to the races, and I think it's going to just be lovely. So let's give the lyric another read after the interpretation. Again, this is more of Jimmy's interpretation, and I just sort of put my spin on the need you more than want you for all time stanza, and sharing with you the fact that I heard it first in Ozark. I gotta give it to these music supervisors that work on these shows. So, some of your choices are mwah. I mean, especially the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul crew. Oh gosh, all your names are escaping me, but I'll put it up. Man, y'all do beautiful work picking these tunes. Just glorious. They played all of Henry Mancini's Days of Wine and Roses. I don't want to give it away, no spoilers, but geez, I was like, oh my god, that's the whole orchestration, and they're playing it all. Oh my god, this is so relevant. Whatever it is, but it was lyrics. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't lyrics. It was just the music. It was an instrumental rendition. It was so powerful. So anyway, here it is after the line by line, stanza by stanza analysis for Wichita Lineman. I am a lineman for the county, and I drive the main road, searching in the sun for another overload. I hear you singing in the wire. I can hear you through the whine, and the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. I know I need a small vacation, but it don't look like rain. And if it snows, that stretch down south won't ever stand the strain. And I need you more than want you. And I want you for all time. And the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. Glorious solo. And I need you more than want you. And I want you for all time. And the Wichita Lineman is still on the line. It's a nice song. It's a really nice song. A lot of stuff going on. Beautiful. It's like a painting. Beautiful painting. Sometimes you need a Van Gogh behind you. Just glorious. Picture really does paint 1,000 words, and with a good lyric, meh, you get 1,000-word painting. You really do. Thank you, Jimmy Webb. And thank you, Glenn Campbell, for that immortal rendition of Jimmy Webb's song. Once again, I am Ryan Kelly Berkowitz, your host of Lyrics That Do the Talking. Thank you for joining me for my 5th episode, where I dove into the lyric of Wichita Lineman. Until next time.